Okay, hello everyone. It's been a while. I'm Apocalypse the Geek Guru, and today I'm going to be talking about House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones HBO Max show, or Game of Thrones spinoff, whatever. There's not a whole lot to cover, but let me just get right into this. Alright, so the show starts off with some narrator explaining that the king is dying, and since he lost both of his sons, he needed to, check his heir, or whatever. He only had two real choices. He could either pick the interracial couple or the non-interracial couple. Obviously, because I think this show is going to be a lot about how much men suck and women are great, which is going to be a bit annoying. Like, I'm tired of them injecting 2022 politics into fantasy stuff that is theoretically supposed to take place hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Like, he would have picked the male heir. Like, that's just how things would have gone back then, you know? So the fact that they make some big deal about the fact that he didn't pick not a huge deal, but like, they're like, oh, he didn't pick his daughter or whatever. It's like, that's not how they did things back then. Like, if he had a female heir and a male heir, he'd pick the male heir. I'm not saying it's right. I think that they should pick the best person for the job. And if the best person for the job happens to be the woman, then pick the woman, you know? But that's just not how they thought back then, you know? So anyway, okay, let me just get through this real quick. Aside from the 2022 politics and the fact that Rhaenyra acts like modern day feminist, with her obviously not girlfriend, it's like they wouldn't have really thought like that back then. But it didn't ruin the show for me, really. Honestly, I still like the show, and I'm pretty excited to see what they're gonna do with it. But I just had to get that out the way. Like, Rhaenyra acts like a 2022 gender studies graduate or something. Like, okay, so that being said, let me get back into this plot and stuff. So it cuts to 9 years later. The king's been ruling, and he's trying to get a successor now or trying to cement his heir or whatever. And then it shows his daughter riding a dragon, easy now. Which, I mean, the dragon looks good, in my opinion. I'm not a great judge of CGI and its quality. Like, I mostly play video games, so if something looks better than, like, Grand Theft Auto, I'm like, wow, that's great. But, because I've seen a lot of, like, things where, like, I'll be like, wow, that's great CGI, and someone will be like, that's terrible. What? So I'm not a great judge of that. I think it looks good. And Rhaenyra, I think that's her name, the one who's not Daenerys but looks exactly like her. Man, that was my whole point. She looks exactly like Daenerys, and it was kind of crazy. But yeah, so anyway, she gets in the carriage and whatever. And then it cuts to they're having a small council meeting in the Red Keep. Wait, no. First, it goes to her. She visits her mom, who's pregnant, and this and that. And again, her mom is like, oh, one day you'll be sitting here, you'll be in this birthing chair or whatever you call it. I don't know. I'm not well versed in that area. So she also says, like, oh, no, I won't. I'd rather be a warrior and this and that. And again, it's like, even like hundreds of years ago in our time, I'm not saying that never happened and women never thought like that. I'm just saying it wasn't like something that happened often. Which, I mean, okay, if they want to make her one of the women that thought like that, fine. Again, I don't think it didn't ruin the show for me. Like, having the 2022 politics in it, it's annoying, and I'm getting tired of it being thrown into every show. But I'm still waiting to, I still think there's a lot of potential here, and if they open their freaking eyes and realize that that's not what people want in a fantasy setting, then this show could have some really great potential. So now they go to the small council meeting, and she's his cupbearer for some reason. The princess is the king's cupbearer, the one who walks around and pours wine for everybody. Like, what? No. Like, that's not how they did. Not even like back then, but like in Game of Thrones, like that's not how they did things. At least that. Like the king had one of the other Lannisters as his cupbearer. Like it wasn't the freaking princess. What? That's silly. Like that'd be like if Robert Baratheon had Marcella pouring his wine and stuff. Like or Joffrey had Marcella. Okay, I could see Joffrey have Marcella pour his wine, but still, like what? They're royalty. They're not some servant that goes around pouring wine. I don't know why. Like I think they only did that just to make her like oh look, she's a servant. You know, she's serving them. You know, and it's like no, that's not how they would have done things. So you know, they're all sitting around having a small council meeting, laughing about stuff. You know, and again, this doesn't really, this is like, I think the last real moment that's like 2022 stupid stuff is that, I don't want to say this, but it's like, they have all these white guys laughing about stuff and, you know, drinking and all this and that. And the one black guy is like, hey, we need to get serious. There's some stuff going on. We need to, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's also the only one that doesn't drink. You know, he's like, oh no, this is business time. He doesn't say that, but it's like, you can tell that that's what they're going for. Like, oh, he's the professional one. And again, it's just like, I feel like this show is going to be a lot of white men suck, and everybody else is just great and better, and, you know, white guys are just super corrupt and terrible. And I'm really getting sick. And as a white guy, I'm getting real sick and tired of that crap. Especially in a freaking fantasy show theoretically set hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Like, Jesus Christ. Moving on. So, then we get to see who so far is probably my favorite character. And that is, Daemon Targaryen, who was played by Matt Smith, who played the Doctor, who's my favorite show, Doctor Who. And here's the thing, he's a great actor. He has this sort of gravitas to him. You know, he can look menacing and cheerful, even at the same time sometimes, you know? And here he's just he was a good pick for the role. And my only problem with it though is that his voice is a bit too. I would have preferred it if he was like a bit more gravelly, you know, because I don't know. His voice just isn't very menacing, but he does have this like face, and he's pretty tall too, so he can kind of like, you know, look down on people and glower or whatever. But aside from that, his voice just didn't. I would have preferred if he, like, you know, had a bit more gravelly to it. So Rhaenyra, that's it, Rhaenyra. Okay, so her and her not girlfriend are studying in the would that be the Godswood, or was that only in Winterfell? Winterfell. It's a wonderful day. Okay, inside her. So they're studying, and she's just like, oh, Rhaenyra is just like, oh, I don't, blah, 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 it was this thing or that thing. Like, she acts like she doesn't know the thing, the answer or whatever, and her not girlfriend is just like, oh, you need to study this stuff. And then Rhaenyra gets up, and oh, obviously she knows all the answers. She's just kidding around. Blah blah blah, but she's, you know, she's super smart, obviously, as well. But which I don't actually have a problem with that. It's just everything else surrounding it. Like if she's smart, okay, she's got a good memory about stuff. That's fine. I'm I'm just bitter and resentful about everything. Okay, so they go to the king, and he's got some sort of lesion, some sort of thing on him. I don't know. And they're like, all right, well, why don't we cauterize it or whatever? He's just like, which, if anyone doesn't know, when you cauterize a wound, like let's say you have a cut or something, cauterizing is just like applying, like burning it essentially to close the wound. So they're like, let's do that. He visits his wife in the bath, and he's like, we're gonna have a son, you know, because he's trying to get an heir. He's got his daughter, but he's trying to get an heir, probably because that was one thing about the last king, is that he didn't have an heir. So, you know, now he's like, I don't want to, I don't want to like have to deal with all that. So he wants an heir, you know, he wants a son. Plus, everyone wants an heir, you know. So anyway, then it cuts to Daemon Targaryen, and who he obviously, you can already tell he wants the throne. He was literally sitting on the Iron Throne, which I'm not a huge fan of the design of the Iron Throne. I like how they added more swords to it, because in the books, which I haven't read the books, but I have friends who have read the books and have told me and showed me some pictures and stuff, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I like how they added swords to it because it's supposed to be bigger and stuff, but they just have them sticking out of the ground around it. Like what? It's silly. Like, they should have made it like bigger and had like, you know, more stuff on it. But whatever. I just think it looks silly with all of the swords like sticking out of the ground. Kind of looks all right. You know, it's intimidating. I'll give them that. It's intimidating, more so than the other Iron Throne from Game of Thrones. Like this one, you know, you see a bunch of spikes. It almost looks kind of like a battlefield or like a desolate forest or something. So it's intimidating. Like if you're a subject or whatever coming up there, yeah. But I just think it looks silly with all the swords like sticking up out of the ground. So anyway, Daemon, he's in charge of the City Watch, the Gold Cloaks. If anyone remembers from Game of Thrones, he's in charge of the Gold Cloaks, and he sets them loose on the city and just starts like beating and maiming and like hacking away at people, like cutting off people's hands and arms and like heads. And I don't even want to think about what they're doing to that guy with his pants down. Ooh, that's what they did to him. I didn't notice that last time. Yeah. And I mean, okay, I get why. It's just because he's like, you know, he's laying down the law. He's like, all right, I'm in charge of the Gold Cloaks now. We're not taking any crap. You know, the Gold Cloaks are going to be feared and people are going to listen to us. Which, I mean, okay. Like, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I understand. Like, I'm just saying I understand where he's going with that and understand why he would do that. Especially in, like, the old times like that, where it's, like, could have been really lawless and stuff. But, it's an interesting scene, because he's just hacking away at people. And then it goes to the small council again, and maybe it was my TV because it looks brighter in here. And I mean, whatever. But he's still in his armor, covered in blood from like the night before. And the hand of the king, who's some guy, some Hightower guy, I forget. It's the first episode. It'll be probably a few episodes before I get everyone's name down and figure everybody out. But basically, they're just like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing with these gold cloaks? Why are you cutting a swath through the city? And they're just like, he's just like, hey, I'm trying to get him under control, you know? Oh man, I mean, I don't even want to say it's not how I would have done things, because again, it's like, this is a, you know, hundreds of years ago in a city with like crazy city. Probably not how I would have done things, though. We've just had patrols, not freaking mobs. Anyway, we finally get to a sex scene in Game of Thrones. It only took them 10 minutes. 10 minutes. See Matt Smith's buttocks. Beautiful naked woman. One of the other reasons I was not glad to have Game of Thrones back. Thing is, though, like, one thing that bothered me is he literally goes and puts like a shawl, like a freaking blanket over him and stuff. And goes and like pouts in the corner or whatever, and she's got to like come and comfort him. It's like, why does she got to come over and comfort him? He should be strong enough. He's the freaking prince, sort of, isn't he? I think so. I always forget how that stuff works. Like, the king's brother is a prince, right? Someone correct me down in the comments. I don't know. But, so anyway, and then we get to a tournament, and I think that the king has the dagger that Arya used. Spoiler for Game of Thrones, for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. I think he's got the dagger that Arya used to kill the Night King, that was used to kill Bran, or that was used to attempt to kill Bran, and then blah blah blah, and started the whole controversy and all that. I think it looks like the hilt. I don't know. We never really get a good look at it, but it's there for like no reason. Like, he's got a dagger with him, which he's a medieval king. He would have had like probably some little dagger on him, or at least like maybe even a sword. But I think it's a dagger, and we get to see some jousting. I like jousting. I love for anyone who wants a good, funny medieval comedy, A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger and Justin Tudyk, the pirate guy from Dodgeball. He's in it, I think. It's a hilarious movie, and it's all about jousting and stuff. It's great. Paul Bettany's in it. Vision. Paul Bettany, the guy who played Vision, he's in it. He's great. Oh man. So yeah, if anyone wants a good medieval comedy and not like medieval, softcore, like gory thing, then A Knight's Tale. That's a great movie. Love that. I might watch that after I do this. So yeah. There's a recommendation. So anyway, we get to see, nice little tournament. I was sitting there like looking for all the like banners and sigils of the houses. There was a Bolton. They mentioned a Baratheon. The Lannisters there too. It was just cool to see like all the stuff and stuff. Like, see all the families again, and like I said, I'm excited to get back into this world because I love Game of Thrones, and I just love the the medieval setting and the magic and everything. Thought it was great. Oh yeah, and the Queen's giving birth right now, and she's going through some problems. She's having like birth difficulties, complications with the pregnancy or whatever, or birth, whatever. Again, not really well versed in the technical jargon. So the tournament's going on, and the one guy's winning everybody. And they say that the one guy, I forget his full name, but he's a Dondarrion. And for anyone who remembers Beric Dondarrion from Game of Thrones, he was the guy with the eye patch who kept getting killed and brought back to life. So we see one of his ancestors here fighting, which is pretty cool. I think it's cool. I think it's cool to see like the ancestors of people and see the families and all that. We even see a Stark real quick, at the end. It's great. Ooh, yeah, good old Game of Thrones gore. Guy takes a hatchet straight to the face. Oh, that dude's throwing up in the background. Oh man, I love it. Ooh, picking at her fingernails. That's not good. They're all bloody. My fingernails look better than hers, and she's the freaking princess's. What were those called? Maid? Handmaiden? Whatever? Lady's maid? Nah, she wouldn't have had lady's maid yet. Whatever. Her, not girlfriend, who is the daughter of the Hand of the King, which I'll go into a bit later. Anyway, oh yeah, so she's not going to make it through the pregnancy pretty much, or at least, like, the baby, I forget what they say, but the baby is, like, turned around or whatever. And I can't even imagine a normal pregnancy. Spitting that thing out sideways. I know that's pretty crass, that thing. But, sideways, I mean, huh. So yeah, they're just like, we can't get it out. Either both of them are going to die, or we're going to have to kill one. Which, I mean, that's an impossible choice. Which I think the Maester even says. And it's like, and he chooses to save his son and heir. And I'm not going to make any comments onto whether his choice was right or wrong. Because I honestly don't feel as though there is any right choice in that moment. You know, there's a line from Doctor Who. It always comes back to Doctor Who, but where the doctor says that sometimes the only choices you have are bad ones. You know, but you still have to choose. So, and that's, I don't think there's ever been a moment or any sort of situation that better represents that than having to decide whether to kill your unborn child and save your wife, or kill your wife and save your unborn child. I mean, that's a choice I hope that not only I don't ever have to make, but I hope no one ever has to make that choice, because that is just too much. But again, I understand his choice as well in choosing to save his son, because he wants to continue the line, I guess. You know, I can't disparage his choice, you know. Let me know what y'all think in the comments about, you know, what y'all think about what he did, and what, you know, if you're willing to say what you would choose, you know. I couldn't make that decision. I'd probably Tom and myself, right? Honestly. I hope I wouldn't, but yeah, I don't think I'd be able to make that choice. But yeah, so Damon's up in the jousting, and God, I just love jousting. Maybe it's because I watched A Knight's Tale when I was a kid, and that's all about, like, jousting and stuff. But I don't know, there's just something about it. Just running at someone with a freaking lance and just boom, smacking into their shield. That's another thing. Damon's helmet is quite possibly the worst jousting helmet I have ever seen in my life. His face is just open. It's like this. Like, literally, it's just got, like, you come here. His face is open. Now, can anyone figure out why you wouldn't want to have your face uncovered in jousting? When someone's riding towards you with a lance, literally trying to stab you. Well, not stab, but, you know, it's a blunted lance. But, you know, literally trying to thrust it at you and knock you off your freaking horse. I wouldn't want my face uncovered for that. Hell, a dude dies in Game of Thrones. Like, he gets his, like, a piece of the freaking lance breaks off and stabs into his neck. And he had his face covered. Like, so no, you would not. That is the dumbest jousting helmet I have ever seen. Aside from that, I like his armor. The rest of his armor, it's great, like, you know, fighting armor. I mean, if you forget the fact that, again, his face is completely exposed. Yeah, exposed, that's the right word. For a second there, I was like, wait, is that the right word? Yeah. But, ooh. Yeah, anyway, Damon gets knocked off of his horse, and then he fights he challenges the other. I think it's the Dondarrion dude. Yeah. He challenges the Dondarrion dude to a contest of arms, and it's kind of. I don't think that Damon's a very good fighter. I'm not sure. This is the only fight we really see him in. But the fact that he loses to a dude with a flail when he's got like a sword, I mean, it could maybe they're just because here's the thing, the medieval flail is not a very good weapon. If you go watch Shadiversity on YouTube. He's got a lot of great videos about medieval weaponry. That's what his channel's pretty much all about. And so yeah, he'll probably even have a review of this as well. He'll probably go better into like the fighting than I can, more into the fighting than I really want to right now. But yeah, so the flail is not a very good weapon. So for someone to like lose with having a sword and a shield, lose to a guy with a flail, it's kind of pathetic. So yeah, so Damon loses. The guy, he spares his life, which I kind of thought he was gonna die right there. I was like, man, I thought Matt Smith was gonna have a bigger part in this, but it looks like he's about to get taken out right now. Oh, throws a shield at him, man. I think the fights are pretty good, aside from the fact that again, the flail thing. So anyway, that helmet is cool. Freaking dragon! I just noticed that it's got like ruby eyes. That's a cool helmet. But yeah, I don't know if it was Matt Smith's idea, like if he really wanted his face shown a lot or what. But yeah, having his face like so, I mean, you can just sword right through that. But anyway, and he gloats a bit too long. Like, you haven't won the fight, dude. Quit celebrating. Because he gets knocked on his ass and has a dude standing over him with a flail. Like, you really want to keep going? So, anyway. The queen dies. It's all very tragic. And now I thought that it was going to be a girl. Even me and my mom, like, we were watching this stuff. And we were both like, oh, it's going to be a girl. Like, it's going to be a girl. And it wasn't. It was actually a son. And that caught me off guard a bit. I was like, wow, it's a son. But, unfortunately, the son didn't make it. We see the funeral pyres. And, the wife is all wrapped up. And next to her on a different pyre is a little bundle. And I was like, wow. Like I said, aside from the 2022 politics, which there's not that much of it in it. Yes, Rhaenyra is very much like a 2022 woman, like, But I mean, so kind of was Arya. So I guess she's just that one in the generation, like I said, it bugs me that it's going into every single show, especially even fantasy that goes back hundreds of years. But I think overall it doesn't take that much away from the show. It's still a good show and I still like it. Now, they're all waiting for her to give the word to light the pyres. And I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. She says Dracarys. And I even said it. I was like, I said it like at the same time she did. I was like, Dracarys. We both said, oh man. Yeah, like I said, I just love this Game of Thrones. But anyway, for some reason they're waiting for her, not the king. Not the king. He's not gonna give the order to light the pyres for his son and wife. No, it's her. Why? I don't know. Maybe the dragons will only listen to her. It doesn't make sense to me. Why the king can't take the initiative. I mean, maybe he was just distraught. I get that. Totally. Like, if that's what they're going for, I just don't get why she's got to be the one. I don't know. But yeah, they burn the kids, or the wife and the kid, and then not even like the next scene, they're literally sitting in the small council chamber, and it's like it looks like it's maybe like nighttime now, so probably like a few hours later, like this night, the night of the funeral, they're like they're talking about we need to, you know, figure out who's going to succeed you, this and that, and you know, they're arguing about, you know, it should be Daemon, you know, Daemon's the rightful heir because he's the king's brother. Which, did the king not have a brother? Did the previous king not have a brother, or was his sister the? I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that shit. Whatever. Screw the last king. I don't care. But yeah. So he's just like, you know, they're saying, oh, Daemon's the rightful heir, and the king's just like, what? You all hate Daemon. They're just like, well, but the law is the law. And then someone says, well, what about Rhaenyra? And, you know, then they're like, oh, well, yeah, Rhaenyra, blah, blah, blah. And then the king's just like, no, screw this. I'm not about to have my heir, you know, I'm not about to have this discussed right now. Mm. And they're talking about Daemon like, oh, he might, you know, I think someone even suggests like, oh, he might kill you and take the crown, this and that. And Daemon's like sitting on the other side of the wall or whatever, listening in. So then, the Hand of the King and the daughter of the Hand of the King, she comes to, like, you know, talk to her father, and he literally like sends her to the king. He's like, hey, I want you to go visit the king in his chambers. You know, he might be pretty distraught. And like, where he's basically trying to set up his daughter with the king, and I don't know. I just don't see that. Like, I've seen very little of his character, but he seemed to be like upset when Daemon asked for like her favor or whatever, which I'm not sure exactly what the hell that means. Basically like give me, you know, wish me luck or whatever, and she gave him like a wreath to put over his lance. Easy now. And but like the Hand of the King seemed like kind of looked at her when she did that, like, you know, I don't like you doing that. But now he's like trying to set it, like match her with the king. It just doesn't seem like something new to do. I guess they just have to make him like, you know, a terrible father, because everyone's like a terrible father nowadays. And so yeah, so she goes and visits the king, and it's just like, hey, I got this book, maybe you'll like it, whatever. And so it cuts down to Damon. I keep wanting to say Damien. You know, I'm used to Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's son, the newest Robin. Anyway, man, I'm way behind on that story. Anyway, so yeah, Damon's down in a brothel. Great scene. Good job, guys. Nailed it. And then kind of cuts like back and forth to him at the brothel at night, and then like the next day they're talking about it. The Hand of the King is telling the king in the council chamber that oh man. Anyway, Daemon was just like, he gave a toast, like to the king's son, you know, heir for a day. And obviously that's very like insulting and stuff. So the king calls him up into the throne room. You know, a little while later, cuts to like later. The king calls him up in the throne room. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, why are they all just poking up out of the ground? Like, don't get me wrong, that's intimidating. But it's like, why are they all just poking up out of the ground? And I like how he's holding a sword for like no reason. Like, I imagine they had him up there with nothing, sitting in the throne, And then they're like, he looks too passive. We need to give him a sword. Have him stabbed into the ground and be crouched forward. Yeah, it's good. And it is. It looks good. It looks better than him just like sitting there with his hands in his lap. You know? So he brings in Daemon, and Daemon's just like, he goes like, yo, you cut the image of a conqueror. And his brother's just like, did you say it? You know, he's like, I don't know what you mean. He's like, you will address me as your grace, or I will have the Kingsguard cut out your tongue. Like, so he's screwing around with him anymore. And he asks him, like, you know, the heir for a day, did you say it? And, you know, he's just like, we all grieve in our own way. You know, trying to play it off. King ain't having it. He tells him, like, get out of here, basically. You know, and he's just like, well, at first the king's like, you know, you had no other allies at court except me. And, you know, Daemon's just like, oh, you cast me aside. You sent me to the Vale, sent me there, did that. Oh, yeah, and Daemon's married, too. They mentioned that. He's married to someone in the Vale. But, like, he came here and has been whoring around. Like, they mentioned that he doesn't spend time with his wife. So, anyway, he's just like, I'm your heir, whatever. And the king's like, no, not anymore. You're going to go back to where you're supposed to be, back to your castle, back to your wife, and you're going to do so without quarrel, you know, without fighting. So go away, leave. So Daemon just does what he can, you know, your grace, and leaves. And he's got like, this is another reason why I don't think that he's like a great fighter, because he's only got like there's only 4 Kingsguard. Now, yes, the Kingsguard are supposed to be some of like the best fighters in the land. You know, they guard the king. They're supposed to be really great fighters. Daemon, when faced with only 4 of them, is like, you know, he just sort of bows his head. You can tell he has no like inclination fight. And I could be wrong. I could be, you know, reading it wrong. Maybe he's a like really great fighter. He's just, you know, cautious or whatever. But then why did he lose to the guy with the flail? Anyway, so again, faced with 4 people, he just kind of bows his head and is like, all right, I'm going to leave them. Whereas contrast that with Barristan Selmy in Game of Thrones. When he gets dismissed from the Kingsguard, you know, he pulls his sword out, and you know, the rest of them, like 5 Kingsguard men, pull their swords out, and they're, you know, I wanted to call him Beric Dondarrion, but Barristan Selmy, he's like, you know, even now, you know, he's like an old man, and he's like, even now I could cut down the 5 of you like a hot knife through butter, whatever. And so, but that's the thing. Barristan Selmy is supposed to be like the greatest knight that ever lived, or at least of his time, whatever. So, I don't know. That's just why I'm thinking that Daemon isn't a particularly great fighter. So I don't know. It's not super important. It's just something I'm like picking up on. Something I think, or at least I think I'm picking up on it. So he sends him off, and the king notices that he's got like a cut from the Iron Throne, which, I don't know, but if I was going to forge a throne out of swords, I think I'd want them blunted down a bit. Like, hey, you think you can grind those down? Maybe like, you know, blunt the tip too. Like, just round them out. I mean, that just makes sense to me, you know? Yeah. So anyway, he's down in... Now, it's weird. He seems to be down in the crypts. Because you see he's looking at the skull of Balerion the Dread. A huge, big dragon that Aegon rode. But it's weird. He seems to be down in the crypts. Or at least it looks like the crypts. It's not, though. It's somewhere else. But they mentioned that the skull... They used to have the skulls in the throne room, which is where they just were, and skulls don't seem to be in the throne room. I don't know. might seem nitpicky, but it's like, if you're going to make a show that goes back in history, you're going to have to adhere to the history. And if they say that the skulls were in the throne room, then you just need to have the skulls in the throne room, not in some place adjacent to said throne room. Whatever. So anyway, the king asks her some weird question about, like, what do you see when you look at the dragons? A giant fire-breathing monster? Would be my freaking answer. So anyway, she makes some mention about how, like, people think that the Targaryens are closer to God than man. That's just because of the dragons, and they have this whole thing about, like, oh, they think that the king makes mention, like, oh, they think that we control the dragons, but the dragons are like just a power that we should never have unleashed. Anyway, and then he's like, and a Targaryen needs to understand this if they're gonna be king or queen. And he looks at her, and she looks at him, and he has to apologize for not, abiding by the laws of their people that they have done for who knows how many years. And I know, I'm not just talking about, like, I know they've been the Targaryen dynasty for the past 100 years, but I'm talking about, like, even before that, like, when they were in Valyria and stuff. So anyway, he names her his heir, which, okay. I just love how it's like they were like, hey, when they were writing this show, they were like, hey, people seem to really like Daenerys and how she, was going to take down the throne and be queen and stuff. So what if we just did that? Literally. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about it. But, so yeah, her and her, not girlfriend are, she's helping her get dressed. And, then they have the big, it's not a coronation, I don't think, not yet. It's just like a naming of the naming of an heir. So you have everybody come down and swear their fealty and stuff to the king and the new heir. So yeah, and then Daemon, he gets on his dragon and just like rides off, and then obviously that's going to be the sort of it's going to be the civil war between the Targaryens. So yeah, and that was the first episode of House of the Dragon. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. Now, I've already pretty much said my piece about a lot of the stuff that I didn't like. The 2022 politics, I'm getting real tired of seeing it, especially in fantasy settings. But yeah, aside from that, I think the acting's really good. And again, I think it has a lot of really great potential as a show. I like it. I'm not going to let the bullshit, which isn't that big a part of the show, at least so far. I'm not gonna let that shit ruin what seems to be a pretty good, interesting story about political intrigue and backbiting and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're gonna have the White Walkers in this, and that was a big thing for Game of Thrones, was the White Walkers. Like, they were a big draw, like they were a big thing. So I'm interested to see how they're gonna cope without having what was one of the big drawing factors of Game of Thrones to, in the show. It's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, so, I mean, let me know what y'all thought in the comments. What y'all think about the show, whether you liked it, you hated it, you're not going to watch it. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head. No, that's pretty much it. I've said, what I've said. I don't like bits of it, the modern shit. But aside from that, I think Damon's character is really good. I think, Matt Smith's obviously a great actor. The King, they've got something going on with him, and he's got lesions and he's getting cuts and stuff. That could lead to something, They've got the obvious relationship between Rhaenyra and her handmaid, which I'm sure is going to come up, because they didn't have gay relationships back then. Like, they didn't really do that. Like, even in Daenerys' time, it was relatively, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it's just like that. They just didn't think like that. People just didn't do that back then, So I'm interested to see how she'll navigate that. But aside from that, I liked it. Excited to see the next episode. All right, I think that's pretty much it. If you like this video, like, if you want to see more of this content, subscribe. Again, let me know what y'all thought in the comments. And that's it. I've been Apocalypse Geek Guru. Thank you for watching. Oh, and if you didn't like this video, let me know. Tell me why. If you think the show sucked and I'm completely wrong and don't know what the hell I'm talking about, let me know why in the comments. Make your argument. All right. Now, goodbye.